Hello, everybody. Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of Live at the Waterhole. First up, we're in Kenya at the old Donyo Lodge. And what a sighting this is with all these big tuskers. Fantastic. My name is Ralph Kirsten. And what does the bush hold in store for us today? Well, you're going to have to sit back, relax, and watch as the animals come down for a drink, quench their thirst, and cool off. That looks like 1 ton. I think he's just pushing his weight around a little bit. But as per usual, please don't forget that this is a live and interactive experience. So we'd love for you to jump on board with us and send us through your questions and your comments. So you can do that by going on the Wild Earth website and registering. You can also join the conversation on X, formerly known as Twitter, using the hashtag Wild Earth as it appears on your screen. What is it that you'd like to chat about? What would you like to see? Whatever it is, wildlife related, send it on through. Looks like the real old boys club, but none as big as 1 ton. And yesterday we had one that had a huge tusk, but only one tusk. And I'm thinking that the other one had probably been broken off by another bull. Well, that is not the case with 1 ton, that's for sure. So it looks lovely and clear here in Kenya, but that being said, I think let's go and have a look what the weather's going to be like across all the different locations. So it looks like a typical summer's day, just about, but it is in fact winter in these parts. But nice and crisp, and the sun is out. So that bodes well for us. Lots of animals coming down for a drink. You can see this Maasai giraffe now wants to get in the thick of it. Seems to be thirsty. I hope the elephants are going to give him a chance. Yeah, looks like he's got himself a gap on the opposite side of the waterhole. There's another one peeking through in the background. It's behind those zebra. And Joanne Mello, first up, saying good Thursday. Yeah, welcome aboard, Joanne. Lovely to have you with us once again. And Sandy saying 1 ton. Great to see him today. Yes, absolutely, Sandy. Nice to have you on board once again. Mercedes Bean saying greetings, Ralph and Wild Earth crew. Bush greetings back at you, Mercedes Bean. So 1 ton, just shifting those zebra off there. Very often the zebra gang up and come in numbers, and they actually push the elephants out of the waterhole. So there's a bit of a power sharing here. There need to be a lot of the zebras to be able to do that. So just while we're watching these big chaps, I've been able to find a nice little blog. I'm not sure when it was written, but this was by Timbuktu Travel and written by Holly Allison, talking about safari guests witness an elephant rescue in these parts from the Old Donyo Lodge. And a big bull elephant falls prey to a poacher's spear. And it's not often that guests on a safari will participate in a mission around an elephant rescue, but then again, this is Africa. It was early morning at Kenya's Old Donyo Lodge in the Chulu Hills, when two guests spotted an injured bull walking near their lodge. It was a huge bull with towering white tusks. It was clear that he had a spear wound in his back leg. And poachers and farmers in the area are known to use spears to take down big elephants. I also know that they do use them sort of as protection as well, so not necessarily a poacher, but as potential. And they will spear the animal and wait days, weeks, or even months for the animal to suffer and then perish. And the rangers from the Big Life Foundation, a local conservation organization, were aware of the injured bull and immediately notified the Kenya Wildlife Services vets. While everybody waited, Big Life rangers monitored the bull to make sure he did not wander off and get lost in the thick Chulu bush. And a vet arrived on the scene that afternoon by helicopter, and the team, including two interested guests from the lodge, went off to dart the big bull. And we see now that individual here back from yesterday with only one tusk. The bull was quite relaxed, said Sean Mosley. We could drive right up to him without much hassle. Even after being darted, he only moved off about 50 meters. Probably looking for help, I would think. And about 12 minutes later, the tusker fell to his knees under the anesthetic, and the rangers had to tie him up to the vehicle on one side, and then with all their might, pulled him onto his right side. The vets started work immediately after the bull fell to his side, where they found the wound on his back left rump. They pried around in the wound to see if any part of the spear was left in the animal, and thankfully they could not find anything. But there was still concern that the fresh gash would get infected. The wound was cleaned out, and then an antiseptic clay was applied to the wound to make sure that it healed up well. And after the antidote was injected, the mighty tusker climbed back on his feet. Then a bit of drowsy stumbling, he was off. The rangers have since seen the tusker wandering in the bush. And thanks to the keen eyes of a few guests and the quick response of the veterinary unit, he will go on to fight another day. And the successful elephant rescue was probably the highlight of the two guests' Africa trip. But it just goes to show that even as a guest or viewers, as we are on Wild Earth, if we spot anything, we will inform the authorities. And if you do at any stage, you just let us know. We don't always see everything. Sometimes we might miss some detail that the guests pick up or the viewers. And so please send it through and we will investigate and inform the authorities if required. So Catherine was saying, good to see 1 ton. Absolutely. Even though now it looks like he's moved off. I think he's had his drink and headed off on his own. And Tara was asking, good afternoon, Ralph. I wonder if 1 ton or the other tuskers suffer with musculoskeletal issues due to the extra weight of the tusk. Tara, I think at some stages they might, but luckily for them, it does come on gradually, obviously, as it grows. So I think they slowly strengthen the muscles required to sort of hold up the heavy head. But we have seen, and I've seen on numerous occasions with the big tuskers, you see them resting their heads a lot. So it does become or give them quite a bit of fatigue eventually, and sometimes putting their tusks on the ground or leaning up against a tree and sleeping like that, or resting at least. So I think it does hamper them a little bit, but I'm not quite sure if it would extend that far. As with the slow growth of it, those muscles then grow as a result as well. quite a few questions coming through, which is great. Thanks very much. And Sandy saying that this little waterhole is getting smaller, she thinks. And it does get smaller. It sort of fluctuates. It's only a small little waterhole. As you see 1 ton returning, having a scratch against his mate there. Either that or he's pushing him around. And so, Sandy, yeah, this waterhole, obviously it does fluctuate quite a lot, because when the big bulls like this come in, the water level will drop very fast, because they can each drink up to about 200 liters. So they could probably take out quite easily 1,000 liters between them within a few minutes. So it's constantly being refilled, and I'm sure they won't let it get completely empty. Otherwise, the animals will stop visiting here. So that's a big part of why they do have this water hole, and why, it will then also bring the animals closer, that the guests can see them from the lodge. So it is an artificial water hole. I'm not sure if it was previously a natural spring, but they do pump water into it, and they will fill it up once again, I'm sure. And then UK Girl was saying, hi, do the waterholes dry up quickly? How deep are they? The natural ones that aren't replenished from underground water, they can, especially in the dry season, dry up. But this one, I think they'll keep it permanently filled, so the animals can keep on coming through. This one is not deep at all. It must be about 40 or 50 centimeters deep at the most. So it's literally just a little pan that they keep pumping the water into. And now Catherine asking a nice question. Are there any programs to relocate tuskers to places where these genes don't exist anymore? Catherine, big tuskers didn't naturally occur everywhere. It's not sort of a gene that is across all elephants, or was across all elephants. There's still big tuskers in the Kruger. There's also still some in the Tembe elephant region, and that part going through to Mozambique, and then here in Kenya as well. So it's sort of along the eastern side of Southern Africa and leading into East Africa, where the big tusker genetics really were and always have been historically. So they have been hunted, obviously, to much smaller gene pools, but this is the naturally occurring area that they do exist. So it's literally just protecting their genetics, and particularly, especially these big bulls themselves, because they'll be able to pass on their genetics to numerous females. And so we should have, or at least in that way, protect the genetic line. But with that in mind, lovely article from the Tsavo Trust talking about the extra protection for the last giants of the elephant world. And the Tsavo Trust's Big Tusker project, working in support of the Kenya Wildlife Services, and alongside research and conservation partners, including Save the Elephants, Tsavo Trust monitors the elephant populations of Tsavo with a specific emphasis on the large tuskers. And the term big tusker refers to an elephant with tusks so large they scrape the floor. There's a bit of argy-bargy going on here. And unfortunately, the opportunities for witnessing a big tusker in its natural habitat is slim. As of today, there are approximately 25 individuals left in the world, most of which reside in the Tsavo Conservation Area, and as I said, in the Kruger as well, and also then into Tembe too. And it's vital that we make every effort to protect what is arguably the last viable gene pool of big tuskers remaining. There's a number of reasons why big tuskers are so rare. Firstly, elephants with tusks that large are a natural rarity, which only adds to the mysticism surrounding their majesty. Secondly, these massive elephant bulls are under constant threat from poachers. In parts of the Far East, 1 kilogram of ivory sells for several $1,000s, and a big tusker can have tusks that weigh over 50 kilograms each. So at the Tsavo Trust, working in conjunction with the Kenya Wildlife Services and partners, we are faced with the momentous task of trying to protect these big tuskers from the ever-present threat of poaching. while also allowing them the freedom to roam in the vastness of Tsavo that is so integral to the life of an elephant. A future where there are no big tuskers in Tsavo is not worth thinking about. Tsavo is famous for its big tuskers, and the presence of these majestic animals brings huge numbers of tourists to the park every year, and that income is vital to further conservation efforts and supporting local communities. In Kenya, the codependence between humans and wild animals is strong, but it has its challenges, and this is something Tsavo Trust is energetically trying to address through its community conservation program. And the vast and varied wilderness of Tsavo provides great potential for wildlife growth. However, at the same time, this creates a huge challenge for effective wildlife conservation. Without the use of aerial operations, it would be impossible to monitor this massive, largely roadless area of land. Annual running costs for this kind of activity is high, and therefore it is essential to seek funding support in order to protect these last remaining tuskers. By guarding them, we are effectively providing a layer of security for all other wildlife within their range. And this monitoring is carried out by Tsavo Trust's aerial unit, providing regular eyes in the sky, working in tandem with ground protection teams who provide eyes and ears on the ground. Also, in total partnership with the Kenya Wildlife Service Research and Monitoring Department, Tsavo Trust has deployed the Tembo 2 and Tembo 4 mobile ground teams, which carry out daily monitoring of big tuskers in the Tsavo East National Park and Tsavo West National Park, as well as an array of many varying activities under this department, directed by the Kenya Wildlife Services, to include endangered species monitoring, such as Hirola, Grevy's zebra, and predator monitoring, just to mention a few. So, and if you would like to donate to the Tsavo Trust, well, you can go onto their website and contribute to the real conservation of these massive tuskers with the huge overheads that they do have, especially with that aerial monitoring that is required in such a vast area. It's a lovely, peaceful scene. I don't like it when they get angry with each other. It's very powerful, but you always know, and they run the risk of injury. And injuries out here is not a good thing to have. But at least we know that they are being monitored. And as the rescue that I spoke of earlier, especially when it's man-made or caused by man, then they will definitely get involved and help the animals out, especially if it's any of the big tuskers as well. So just getting a bit of a closer-up view of a couple of these individuals. See their 1 ton moving around the side now. Definitely that one with only one tusk. That is a big tusker as well. I wonder how big his other tusk was, though, if it was the bigger or the smaller of the two that broke off. He's got quite a big notch out of his ear as well. He's been in the wars, I think. See, I wonder how old or how long ago that tusk was broken off. You see, it was just blowing dust onto that area and then did touch it as well. I wonder if it's still a bit sensitive. But this is just absolutely stunning with all of these bulls here. Still haven't seen any breeding herds coming through. It's only the bulls that we've had. And the Tsavo Trust continues speaking about the rust red elephants of Tsavo. At over twice the size of Israel, the Greater Tsavo Conservation Area is a vast, wild area of awe-inspiring natural beauty and incredible biodiversity. That's pretty much double the size of the Kruger National Park. The area boasts Kenya's single largest population of elephants, famously red in color due to Tsavo's rusty earth tones, numbering approximately 15,000 animals today. And this might sound like a good many elephants, but not when you consider that in the late 1960s, there used to be around 35,000 in Tsavo. So less than half now. And among the surviving population is arguably, yes, I would argue, the world's last viable gene pool of elephants carrying exceptionally large ivory. In full collaboration with the Kenya Wildlife Services and other conservation partners, Tsavo Trust has played a vital role in reducing elephant and bushmeat poaching by at least 70% in recent years. 9 years from 2013 to 2021, where joint Tsavo Trust and the Kenya Wildlife Services activities have resulted in 6,302 hours flown, covering 734,750 kilometers. That's a lot of distance. Made 860 arrests, recovered 5,880 snares, 741 elephant tusks, located 663 elephant carcasses, fresh and recent, and recovered 4,627 kilograms of bushmeat, wet and dry, just to mention a few notable statistics. So doing fantastic work in conserving this area as a whole and the animals that live in it. So in Sanjeev Roy was saying Kenya has got some of the scenic, naturally beautiful game reserves, small in size but mesmerizing. Mount Kenya is one such. Yes, absolutely, Sanjeev Roy. Although this wilderness area is massive, as I've mentioned, around about double the size of the Kruger National Park. So I think it does make it difficult for the rangers, to have and to move around and to be aware of any poaching activity. Joanne Mello saying 1 ton is awesome, a true legend. And here standing, as Mercedes Bean says, 1 ton and 1 tusk. The two big tuskers. Shame. One with only one, but he's still magnificent. I think this could potentially cause a bit of unbalanced sort of issues for this one tusk, because now he's only got the weight on one side. And Jin Lin saying the elephants have taken over the water. What a collection there today. Absolutely. And you can see the giraffe are lining up in the background and the zebra also patiently waiting. They're not going to be shifting this old boys club. I'm pretty sure of that. So it seems the birds are still able to come in and have their drink, but not so for the rest of the animals. So UK girl was asking, do we know how old one tusk and 1 ton is or are? They have so much character. Thanks. UK girl, I don't know much about one tusk, but 1 ton, apparently the story is that he appeared from nowhere, and they don't know where he came from. So they don't know where he was born and when, but just from his size, they're estimating that he's in his 50s. I would think that potentially one tusk is a little bit younger. His tusk isn't quite as big. It's not always the case, but maybe his early 50s, where 1 ton, I would think, is probably in his mid 50s. So maybe one tusk just a little bit younger. But he's just shown up over the last couple of days as well. I'm not sure if he's a regular here, but I'll see if there's any other information that we can find out about any of these big tuskers, and I'll let you know. All right, so what a fantastic start we've had here at Old Donyo. We're going to keep an eye on this waterhole, and we can always jump on back here because this is just an amazing sighting. But for the time being, we're going to head on back to South Africa, KwaZulu-Natal, and the Tembe Elephant Park. There's also a couple of elephants. See one off on the left, and a little group of impala. It seems to be a sort of daily occurrence here. Impala like it here as well. And the elephants really enjoy this waterhole. It is really filled up now. I think there's a woolly necked stork just off over on the left there. So Sarah was asking, do they ring bark the trees here too? Sarah, not so much, because of the tropical sort of nature of the area. It supports a lot more evergreen plants. You see, I mean, we're fully in winter, and the greenery still abounds. So the elephants have a lot of food availability, and they don't then get into the bark of the trees as much in winter as they do in the Lowveld area and in Madikwe, because there's a lot more deciduous trees, and it's seasonal, so losing their leaves, etc. There's a lot less food available for the elephants, and so they go looking for that inner cambium of the tree itself, which is very nutritious. Um, and that's then when they start stripping the trees, and sometimes then they also ring bark them, and it can be quite destructive for especially those big trees, but it's just because of that food availability. So along the east coast, that would be in the Eastern Cape, the elephants don't generally ring bark the trees as much, as well as up here into KwaZulu-Natal and into Botswana even. A little bit more there, um, but definitely up into Kenya, they've got a very tropical. So there's plenty of food, and there's no need to go in and starting to get into that inner cambium of the bark. So Tembe Elephant Park is quite a small little reserve, but it is one of those very special game reserves. And they've got these big tusker genetics. And what's also special is you do have the chance of seeing a little Suni, which is one of the smallest little antelope. It's between the Damara Dik, the Suni, and the blue Dacre that are the smallest. And each park that has whichever one of those will claim that they have the smallest antelope. But in my opinion, I would say that the blue Dacre is in fact the smallest. But in Namibia, they will say that they have the smallest, and here at Tembe, they will also say that they have the smallest in the Suni. Yeah, dark cap bulbul calling, and I think there might also be a little somber green bull in amongst it. You see there the woolly neck stalks just next to this elephant. And then in the water, looks like common moor hen. Might have some little chicks with it. Slowly ambling away from the water, but I think he might be going for a bit of a dust bath now. There comes the dust. Yep. So it's all the boys, all the bull elephants for now, across the two different locations. No breeding herds just yet. I'm hoping we'll get to see some of the little youngsters playing around in the water. That would be lovely. So Victor was asking, do elephant herds ever split if the herd perhaps gets too big? And yes, they can, Victor. They do split. And it's very often when you've got numerous older females of similar age and size, as part of the leadership group. And then as the group gets bigger, I think there's a lot more decisions to be made for the better good of everybody. And that's when I think they start to have disputes within that leadership group. And then you start to have some of them that might move off very often just in a very small group. So you don't have a real split down the middle. Not that I've noticed. It's more sort of breakaway herds that start to, leave with one of the elders and part of that management group, if you can call it, leadership females that would then move off and then begin her own herd as the matriarch. Let's just see if there'll be any interaction between them. Looks like it. Oh, going to join him for a dust bath. Sounds like forest weavers calling now. It's a very melodious whistle. See, using the foot to sort of break up the soil and then throwing it over themselves. See, also hanging his trunk now over his tusk. Quite convenient. Just a lovely relaxed pose. See, they're getting it really under the belly, in behind the ears, all the important spots, and then sometimes also throwing it over the top of their head and onto their backs as well. See the rise of a fish in the water, seemingly with not much wind around as well. Saw that nice and clearly. It's probably a catfish, a barbel. Farius garipinus is the Latin name. And beautiful reflections there now off the water. That is stunning. I think that would make an amazing photograph. You can hear some red-faced mousebirds now. Beep, beep, beep. Also cooperative breeders, so normally in family units. That's a black-backed puffback. Or sneeuwballetjie, as they call him in Afrikaans, a snowball, because of the way that they puff up their backs when they are displaying. So that's when the name comes from, the snowball, sneeuwballetjie in Afrikaans. So Tara was asking, do relocated elephants ever find their way back home, and is there a minimal distance to prevent this? So Tara, as the norm, elephants are not territorial, so they won't be sort of looking to get back to their space that they have sort of marked and claimed as their own. The elephants, as long as they can get enough water and food availability, the thing that they would move for is for females when they come into must. So, and that's the bulls, obviously. But with the females and the breeding herds, it's as long as they've got enough food and water, they're generally pretty happy within their group. And I don't know, and have never heard of any elephants having been translocated and breaking out and trying to make their way back to where they came from. I think it's as a result of them not being territorial. And as long as all their needs are met, then they generally do settle in and don't create much problems. I do know of elephants leaving the Etosha National Park because on the western boundary, in the past, there was quite a few sections of the fence that were actually down. And sometimes the fence is actually down as a result of the elephants. They stand on it and push it down, and then they walk over. And so they've left the Etosha National Park and have also returned. But so that not quite what you were asking in terms of being translocated, but they have, in my experience, sort of moved and returned to parks as well. So having done that, but I think because heading to the west, it's a little bit more arid than Etosha. So maybe there were some females that they were also heading to, and just for some particular spots where they could remember having been feeding or whatever it might have been in winter, and then returning at a later stage. Okay, so nice stop in here to see these big bulls here in Tembe. You see the fish rising again there on the left. Pretty sure that's a catfish. They don't have fully developed gills. It's almost like they've got half lungs, half gills. So they do need to take little sips of air. That's why they rise so often. And if you had to put a catfish in a net that they weren't able to come up to the surface, they literally drown, which is quite strange for fish. But this is also one of the reasons why they're able to survive outside of the water. As long as they stay moist, they can literally walk between ponds if they need to as well. Because they've got spines on the side and they use that as a sort of almost legs as they slither through the wet grass at night. And it's also been known in parts where catfish will literally walk out of the waterhole at night and feed on dung, elephant dung or whatever it might be. If there's lots of grubs and things inside of that, they go and feed on it and then slither back to the waterhole. They are incredible fish. A little group of warthogs. Mostly grazing, eating on the grass, the greenery, you can see it there, and actually bulk grazers. So they can actually feed almost as much as zebra do, and so they can quite easily overgraze areas. It's important that you have a balance of predators that will take warthogs out. And in parts where there's not enough predator, what we call in conservation wildlife management is a simulation. You need to go in and harvest warthogs, because otherwise they can have a huge detrimental effect to areas, especially when they can have up to 8 piglets each time that they give birth, and they can give birth up to 3 times a year. So you can understand the exponential growth and of the size of the population, and then obviously then being bulk grazers, they can have a huge impact on the grazing. Southern boo-boo calling now. Beautiful call. All right, now that it's got a little bit quiet, even though there's an elephant, I think we need to go back to where the old boys club has gotten even bigger. This is very special. So let's enjoy this. You can see some wattled stars in front outside of breeding plumage. We've been seeing a lot of these chaps throwing dust all over. I wanted to get any research or whatever information about a more scientific approach to that. But what I have stumbled across is a blog on the elephant. And this is written by Smith. He says, "Why do elephants dirt on themselves?" When you see it, you might wonder what it's thinking. The largest animals on Earth, but some of the strangest. Yeah. Oh, there's a disagreement there. An elephant can lift a tree with its or run around, knock things over, and throw dirt. But is there a good explanation for why elephants throwing dirt on themselves and for all these other activities? In fact, almost everything an elephant does is to staying healthy and protecting themselves against the elements. These bulls, they seem to argue a little bit about where the fresh water is coming out, and that's what they prefer. So when there's lots of big bulls like this, they're obviously all going for that nice, lovely fresh water, and then that's when a little bit of dominance between them will rear its head, and there can be a little bit of disputes and arguments, etc. But in fact, an elephant is one of the most fascinating animals in the world. And they're known for their size and their intelligence, as well as their social behaviors. But what exactly is the reason why elephants throw dirt on themselves? So, why the dust bathing? There must be some sort of logic behind it all. Let's take a closer look. There's a number of reasons why elephants, especially wild elephants, such as these, might take dirt on themselves. One of them is to protect themselves from insects. The dirt acts as a barrier between the elephant's skin and the insect. This is especially important in areas where there's a lot of biting insects, such as flies and mosquitoes. Another reason is for a bit of sun protection, because elephants, like humans, can suffer from sunburn and skin damage if they aren't careful. You may have noticed that elephants prefer to do this when the sun is at its highest and its hottest. It's also believed that elephants use mud baths as a way to cool down. This is definitely evident, especially the way that they get it in behind the ears. When it's hot, the mud can act as a sort of natural sunscreen and heat protector, and when it's cold, the mud bath can keep the elephant's skin warm. So this is also why you see the elephants throwing mud on themselves in both hot and cold weather. But why do elephants throw dirt on themselves and dust? The most common reason why they have dust bars, as we say, from those biting insects. They try to pick up the dirt, grass, and sometimes other materials from the ground and throw it on themselves, creating a barrier between themselves and the insects. Often seen as well during the breeding season when many species of insects are attracted to the smell of the male elephant skin. Another reason, as we've said, is for the sun. So it's quite interesting, and whenever they have a wound as well, you'll see them throwing dust onto that. We saw this one tusk doing it earlier, throwing dust into that area of where he's lost his tusk. Um, and I've seen them doing that a lot. When they have wounds, they will also throw dust and sand onto it. And I've also seen when females give birth, they will throw dust underneath their belly regularly, and they'll also throw dust on the newborn calf as well. I think you could say that they really are sons of the earth. So Geraldine was asking, do all herd animals run the risk of breeding internally? So what I think you're asking is if herd animals could inbreed. I'm hoping that's what you're asking, Geraldine. So yes, I mean there is that potential, but that I think nature sort of prepares for that, and with the males being so aggressive towards each other, as soon as the young males become mature and they obviously start smelling of testosterone, becoming boisterous, getting interested in the females, they get chased away by their fathers and the males that are anywhere around. So I think in so doing, it does give that bit of a safety net of pushing them away from their natal herd where they were born. And so it does help in alleviating inbreeding. Nice mix of animals now. Everybody seem to slowly start to potentially get their chance going for a drink. The zebra are starting to push forward now, and so are the giraffe. Well, you couldn't get much closer than this. And looking underneath an elephant at the rest of them, that is a wonderful angle. Looks like the bull giraffe is now finally going for it. He must be very thirsty. My goodness. Well, there was a real disagreement. And everybody's running for the hills, especially the zebra. So Giraffe saying that this is the best photo frame ever. I think it's ridiculously amazing. I wish I could get a photograph of this, because that is spectacular. So Christian Hall saying also he has to, hoping the elephant doesn't decide to give the camera a shower. Yeah, I think that would change things a bit. I hope he doesn't kick it either. That would probably end our transmission from these parts. But also saying that almost makes you want to reach out and scratch his belly. He's close enough, isn't he? I want to pull one of his hairs out of his tail. I don't think he'll take lightly to that, though. Now, I think this must be one of the most unique perspectives ever on Wild Earth. Well, we were talking about the elephants being in must yesterday, and sometimes they actually, especially when they're older, they can stay in must for very long periods of time. And then they get this green film over that penis sheath, and it really stinks. And it stays like that for quite some time as well. So that's the part of the penis that I was talking about yesterday, and where the film, that green film, which is very musky in smell, occurs. I think the elephants are slowly starting to disperse, and that's why we're seeing this real influx now of giraffe wanting to come in for a drink. Now this bull has slowly moved out of the way, but the waterhole's still being dominated by those four big individuals there. The rest of the animals not really getting their chance, although the wattled starlings have gone in regardless. There come the wattled starlings once again. It's amazing how they transform when they go into breeding plumage as well. Their faces look completely different. They get this like little black helmet and then a very yellow eye or around the eye. And it's crazy. But now they look very bland. They don't have those extravagant colors. And the zebra now finally getting a chance. There was just a bit of a drive forward towards that other male. I wonder if it's just one that's causing the trouble in between them. But once again, there's two spots, I think, where the water comes out, one on the left there and one on the right. So they're being dominated by the bigger, more dominant bulls. The other ones are trying to get in there. And that's, I think, when they push their luck a bit too far. Quite a few more clouds around, so it is shifting between light and grey. It's a nice complexion now. So Joanne Mello saying that the watering hole is a little dry. They need rain bad, I guess. Joanne, I wouldn't say that it's too dry. I think it's just because there's been maybe a lot of activity, but they will be replenishing. I wouldn't be surprised if even by tomorrow the waterhole's nice and full again. And Christian Hall asking, why does that elephant only have one tusk? Christian Hall, it could, we don't know for sure. But most of the time, when elephants lose their tusks, it's generally from fighting with other bulls and they get them broken off. It's a bit like getting punched in the mouth and you get one of your teeth knocked out. So, similar with elephants, and it's fighting between each other that does that. But sometimes it can also become a bit brittle, maybe from a little bit of lack of minerals in their diet. And then when they use their tusks to dig into the ground or dig into the bark of a tree or whatever it might be, and they can actually break it off themselves, much like you may chip one of your teeth. Just as the zebra are being shooed off. Make way, I think he's saying. So, but I would, if I had to bet on it, I would say that it was a fight with another male. Oh, that was a kick right to the chin. It's amazing how the zebra don't really even have much of a response when they are kicked. They get kicked in the head regularly. It doesn't seem to do much to them. I think if it kicked a person in the chin like that, he would have been knocked clean out cold. See, the zebra become a bit irritating to the elephants now. But if they keep growing in numbers, they are going to push these elephants out of the waterhole. I've seen it happen. There just needs to be more of them. So, Darkmane Lava asking a question: how can a researcher say that an animal does not feel pain while being bitten alive into pieces from predators? They claim it's the shock that they don't feel pain. Darkmane Lover, yes, the shock is a big thing, but so is adrenaline. I think adrenaline is probably nature's anesthetic because it's a known fact, and I mean, I've experienced this myself. When you have big trauma, it and obviously as a result of an accident or whatever it is, during that phase and the initial phases, sometimes it can last half an hour to an hour, and then only then do you slowly start to actually feel the pain. And it's as a result of that real spike in adrenaline. And once that starts to wear off, then you start to feel the pain. I've also had it with, playing extreme sports, rugby, also downhill mountain biking, having big accidents and big trauma, but only feeling it after the game or after the ride. So I think there is a lot of evidence to show that, the pain is limited when the adrenaline is pumping. And obviously, being attacked by a predator, that would be happening. And so I'm not sure that they do feel as much as, we hope that they don't. I think the longer it takes for the animal to die, then definitely they would be feeling pain. The quicker it is, I think the less that they feel. That goes without saying. But I definitely think as a result of adrenaline. So Joanne Mello saying that she got kicked by her horse once, and it hurt like very very much. And Joanne, I've been kicked by my donkey. It kicked me in my chest. It knocked me clean off my feet, and I landed about 2 meters away. And I never went that close behind the donkey again. So it was my one and only time. I took a chance, and that was that. So, and also, just so that you all know, we obviously try to stay in the places that have the most activity. This waterhole is obviously very busy now, so we're not. I don't think we'll be moving anywhere anytime soon. We do like to pop around and see the other waterholes just for a bit of diversity. But when you've got so much happening like this, I don't know if you agree with me, but it's always good to hang around and just watch the whole thing as it unfolds. See that one biting the other one. Oh, there comes the kick. Yep. And they're incredibly accurate with that kick as well. But I think you could also say that zebra, apart from lions, they're their own worst enemies. They're terrible to each other. So Rebecca Bishop was saying that zebra are actually more closely related to wild asses or wild donkeys than they are horses. It's one of the reasons they cause the most zookeeper injuries of any animals. That's interesting, Rebecca, in terms of the injuries to zookeepers. I know that quite a lot of like the antelope also do cause injuries, but mainly from the males, especially when they come into the rut. Um, but yeah, interesting to note that a lot of those injuries do actually come from zebra. Yeah, and I would have to agree with you. More closely related to donkeys. And having grown up with donkeys myself, you know, zebra are literally for me very much the same, and also just donkeys with stripes. All right, so we've spent lots of time here, and as I said, it's because of all the action. It's been absolutely incredible. But I think time to change of place, and let's head on over to South Africa, the Madikwe Game Reserve, and Tau. With some more elephants, but for the first time today, a breeding herd. Looks like a reasonably sized one as well. You can see the South African shell duck there on the right. That's a male with the grey head. Other animals too. There we got impala and blue wildebeest. Now, Joanne Mello was saying, just my opinion, I think a horse bite hurts more than a dog bite. The horse's teeth are flat and hurt a lot more. I think so, Joanne. I'd have to agree with you, and I think there's a lot more power in that bite. It's more of a crushing, bruising than a piercing bite that you'd get from the dog. And I would have to agree with you there. But with the zebra, you see them biting each other a lot, and it doesn't. You never see any blood or any chunks coming off. I think they're obviously very thick-skinned and used to it. It doesn't seem to bother them that much. And of course, all the resident waterfowl. We've got those black-winged stilts, the red-billed teals. We can hear the little blue waxbills and chin-spot batis. Lots of birds about as well. So Catherine's saying that you don't want to mess with any wild equine. I worked in a Przewalski horse rewilding project, and the most terrifying animals I ever met. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, we also have wild horses in the southern part of Namibia, but they were obviously domestic horses, but they were just left behind, I think, by the German army. And then they've managed to survive and now have become a wild population. So it's quite incredible. And their story is very unique as well. But very interesting. And in fact, speaking of the equine family, I just saw recently on social media there was a post of a donkey called Diesel that escaped from his owner. And he had been lost for about 4 years. They were devastated. They couldn't find Diesel, the donkey. And then he was spotted with a herd of elk. And he was obviously doing very well, but he considered himself an elk, and off he was running with the herd. So well done, Diesel the donkey. But yeah, case of mistaken identity, but he wanted to run wild, and that's what he's done. There's this pearl-spotted owlet calling in the background. And Rebecca Bishop was saying it makes me giggle watching elephants chase birds. Yeah, and it's mostly the little youngsters. They just try to push their weight around a bit. You see these youngsters now starting to play. They're always the most fun to watch, I believe. The youngsters being naughty. There's the red-billed buffalo weavers calling now. Now, interesting question from Dark Main Lava, but I'll carry on with that just after the break. Ooh, there's a southern black tit that's just called now. Chwe. See that one youngster running off behind the herd there. All right, so I think without further ado, that was a lovely stop in with this nice little breeding herd, but it looks like they're slowly all moving off. So I think we'll do the same, and let's go back to old Donio. So Dark Mane Lover was asking, Ralph, what animal has the most painful bite of all? Dark Mane Lover, I don't know which one would be the most, but I'll go through a list of very painful bites. I just had a quick little bit of research online, and it seems like the platypus is actually one of the most painful bites. But I've never known anybody that's been bitten by one or have any understanding of it. I'm on the wrong continent. But in terms of Africa, I would have to say, now I'm just going to say all of the ones that I think are extremely painful. And a puff adder has to be up there with one of the most painful bites in Africa. And you must also remember that with snakes, cytotoxic snakes are extremely painful. Neurotoxic snakes are, you almost don't feel anything. You'll feel just the bite from the actual fangs, but it's pretty painless in terms of the venom. But cytotoxic snakes are extremely painful, and a puff adder is extremely potent cytotoxin. So if anybody's been bitten by a puff adder, they will tell you it's one of the most excruciating pain that you can imagine. And so painful that people are willing to put their, whichever part has been bitten into scorching hot water. And even the burning of the water is not as bad as the pain from the bite, but it does help to neutralize the protein within it. And then the reverse for spiders. So cytotoxic spiders, you don't feel, or very little anyway, just the sort of prick from the bite. But neurotoxic spiders are extremely painful. And they say, I've never been bitten by one, because, and you'll know if you've been bitten by one, but black widow spiders, which are quite potent neurotoxin, are extremely painful. So you know about it, and that's obviously us as guides. We have to be quite good with our first aid, and we have to understand the symptoms for, especially myself. I've taken many big groups into very remote camping safaris, so sometimes we're 3 days away from the closest hospital. I'd have to know the symptoms of the bites, and so that I would be able to identify whether it's cytotoxin or neurotoxin or hemotoxin, and whether it was a snake or a spider. So, that obviously I can prepare the hospital or the doctor or whatever if I'm running an emergency. So those would be two. Then obviously the Transvaal thick-tailed scorpion is one of the most painful. Scorpion stings. It's not a bite, but yeah. So in terms of that, these are all venom related, though. So just from the pure bite, I would think that a crocodile's bite, they do say that is one of the most powerful jaws out there, coupled with a hyena. But you're just going to lose meat. So, I think both of those would be extremely painful. Just thinking of anything else. Oh, the African python. Although it might not hurt sort of extremely at the time, it does, because of the bacteria in their mouths, lead to heavy infection that could become very painful and can even turn gangrene. So those would be my picks. And I've been stung by a spider hunting wasp on my forehead. I've been stung by a few things on my forehead, and between a honeybee and a spider hunting wasp, I would have to say, probably two of the worst things that have stung me on my forehead. But yeah, so anyway, with that being said, what a wildlife spectacle we have had here at Old Donyo today. And it seems like it continues. But we're just about at the end of the show. But for you, please don't go anywhere, because there'll still be lots of action coming your way. And there will also be the Sunset Safari later on. So I hope you'll all enjoy that, and maybe you'll see the Kambula male lions and whatever else. But I'll be back here again tomorrow, same time, same place. So I hope to see you all back again. And that's it from me for now, folks. Give it horns, bush greetings. Cheers.
Did the Kambula lions get the buffalo? Who are those two lions that Cedric had this afternoon? Did Shidulu cross out south? Did Trishala manage to find a chameleon? All these questions and more will be answered on Safari.